you get cranky when there's a 10-second delay in downloading a website? A few years ago, you were probably thrilled to receive a same-day fax. Technology has produced multitudes of machines with alluring functions, features, options that benefit our lives. But what's the real impact of technology? Forget the superficial glitz of flashy gadgets and light-speed information. Acquiring knowledge and making decisions, whether for individuals or institutions, has been forever altered. The true transformation is in the way we think. Next, on Closer to Truth, how does technology transform thinking? Welcome to Closer to Truth. I'm Robert Kuhn. How do advances in technology affect our modes of thought? How is thinking changing, and how do we adapt? We've invited 5 distinguished thinkers to reflect on the deeper meaning of technology. Dr. George Kosmetsky is co-founder of Teledyne and an early investor in Dell Computers. Dr. Marvin Minsky, professor of media arts and sciences at MIT, was the longtime director of MIT's Artificial Intelligence Laboratory. Dr. Francis Fukuyama is professor of public policy at George Mason University and author of The End of History. Dr. Bart Kosko is professor of engineering at the University of Southern California and an expert on fuzzy thinking. And Dr. Bruce Murray, professor of geology and planetary science at Caltech, is president of the Planetary Society. George, for over 50 years, you've participated in the technology revolution. Give us a brief overview of the progress of technology and how it affects our thinking.
The first thing is that when technology started coming in, and especially electronics technology, we could stop thinking of paper and pencils methods. We could think of taking what we were thinking about, putting it into equations, which was the scientific way, and then we had something to solve it. We also thought that we'd get more time to think, and what we discovered with technology is it just made it easier for us to find things.
Marvin, you've been a professor of media sciences and arts at MIT, and you've been a major pioneer, of course, in artificial intelligence. Your original work, The Science of Mind, a remarkable book, combines insights from developmental child psychology and artificial intelligence. So what's the basic theory behind the book?
Well, it's trying to figure out how the mind works without the common sense belief that somewhere inside the mind there's a self that's sort of in control and commanding everything. So the question is, how do you get mind-like behavior from, well, the brain is really made of 400 different computers. They do different things. They don't agree on everything. And how do you get reasonable common sense behavior out of such a system?
And the concept of society is all these parts working together?
Right, but it's not like a human society where each person is pretty good by themselves.
And how has the impact of technology affected human thinking, as you understand human thinking as a society?
I don't know that it's changed it very much yet, but we're just at the threshold. Computers only started really around 1950. We still don't know how to program them to do common sense kinds of things, only technical things. And that's what's going to happen sometime in the near or far future, and then we'll change.
Frank, you're a professor of public policy at George Mason University, the author of an acclaimed book, Trust, the Social Values and the Creation of Prosperity. What do you mean by trust?
Well, trust is simply the ability of 2 or more people to interact with each other and understand that they're going to be honest, they're going to reciprocate, they're going to do make good on the commitments that they've made. And it's very basic for any human activity, which is almost always social, involving the cooperation of 2 or more people.
And how is trust affected in a society dominated by technology?
Well, it doesn't become less important. In a way, it becomes more important because you take something like the internet, you can deal with anybody anywhere in the world. I mean, that's the potential, but can you trust them? And I think that that's, in a way, the real core of the problem of creating digital or e-commerce or socializing over the net is, how do people come to share values and not just bytes and bits?
Do you trust me?
Absolutely.
Bart, you're a pioneer in fuzzy logic. You're a novelist as well. Your book, Fuzzy Thinking, sanctions contradiction, endorses ambiguity, and demands that we get comfortable with uncertainty. What is fuzzy logic? How does it affect our thinking? And are we going to have to put up with all this stuff?
To some degree. Fuzzy logic or fuzzy thinking is trying to see things in terms of shades of gray as we reason. For example, when does life begin? Does it begin at conception, all or none? Does it begin at the first trimester? When does a teenager become an adult? Is it exactly the first second of the 18th birthday? Law says it is, but it's not clear that's what in fact holds in practice. So fuzzy logic has been trying to capture the grayness of our inherent uncertainty in our reasoning and thinking processes, capture that both in mathematics and then endow that structure into computers to make them a bit smarter.
Bruce, you're president of the Planetary Society, which is the world's leading public participation organization about space, and you're a leading advocate, of course, of space exploration. Give us some sense of how the concept of space exploration can help human beings think about themselves in a different way.
Well, it already has. The seminal effect of the first images of the Earth taken from orbit and from the moon back in the 60s revolutionized the global self-perspective. It led to the environmental movement. It is still working itself out. Similarly, when Voyager took pictures of the Earth as a pale blue dot back in that embedded in the vastness of this solar system, it had a secondary effect of reminding people that the universe doesn't revolve around the Earth. It doesn't even revolve around this star. And so that sense of changing the frame of reference has already happened from space, to say nothing of what may lie ahead.
Do you see some of the environmental movement literally triggered by seeing the Earth that way?
Yes, yes. I think that really happened. And I think that's why it spread so rapidly, because the catalyst was those images which were spread by television, which was the medium of communication at that point.
Let's broadly look at how technology affects thinking, because some people have said it's been nothing less than a shift in worldview. What does that do to the way we make decisions, or the way we conceptualize, or the way we reflect or meditate? Marvin?
Well, I sort of have mixed feelings about questions like that, because I think that we still think pretty much the same way. Our brains haven't been changed. But the tools that we have are immensely better. If somebody asks me a question of fact, I can usually find it in either fail or succeed to find it out from the web pretty fast. And as for computing, we can solve problems numerically and analytically.
But differentiate between fact and opinion, and fact and the bringing together of facts to create new ideas. Isn't there a pressure on us to be less reflective and make decisions more quickly, because the facts are more quickly at our disposal and people expect an answer faster?
Well, there are a lot of problems like that. Sometimes we're under pressure to decide faster. Sometimes with the great leverage of technology, a decision can affect more people in a shorter time. And of course, one of the most dangerous things is the rapid communication in political affairs, where sometimes you see a network saying, well, what does the public think? And 5 minutes later, they say 70% of people think this, and so forth.
You know, I think that there are certain institutions and places where the impact is much greater. For example, in foreign policy, I mean, we're talking about this issue of are you under pressure to make decisions faster? There's no question that the one big impact that something like the CNN effect, which has been talked about in the media, has, is that by seeing immediate images of refugees, of a major battle, or a soldier being dragged through the streets of a foreign city, it forces political decision makers to immediately react in a way that they wouldn't have had to another generation